Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Dean's in here too. So today we are having a very special edition of something that we call our Tuesday Talks. So every Tuesday in our Facebook group, we have a video, a time when we chat with leadership experts, just like these three here, about one of the topics that's going on in the world today, something that is important to us, and how we can use leadership tools to move through that situation. So, something that's interesting that's happening right now in the world today is that there are a lot of discussions that are going on all over the world about how the systems that we're in might not be working super effectively. Okay.
Yes.
So it's being seen all over the world. It's a really interesting and cool time, because once we start being consciously aware of something like this, it's just making us consciously aware of, oh, there's some growth that's possible here. There's something new that's possible that's coming forward. Yeah. So this is something that happens in families. Maybe we're actually all a big, huge world family of 7 billion people. Maybe. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this for us and our family, and how we have these conversations in an effective way. It's super perfect the way that we do it, by the way. Nobody ever gets angry. Nobody ever throws things at anything. You know, we're just super perfect. Yeah, we're super perfect at it. Super perfect. So we're just going to chat about it.
A little baby soup.
I hope that you're hearing the sarcasm in our voices
Yes.
right now.
Quotation marks.
So we're going to talk about how we do this in our family. And interestingly, this morning we identified that something was going not great in our system, that something was happening in our system, and we wanted to address it. So we kind of yelled at each other, and then we're like, oh, hey, look, here's a thing that we need to talk about. So here we are. We're ready to talk about it. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
So,
You can tell them.
today we found that the dishwasher was loaded, but it had some space. And so then mom came and yelled at me, and I told her that I didn't run the dishwasher. And then
That's right. And then what?
And then mom called Eva and she said,
Nope, I didn't do it either.
She said no. And then Jack said yes. And then
Notice that mom didn't have to call me.
And then what?
And then mom called Jack to come into the kitchen, and then she started yelling at Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yeah. Okay, so let me take over maybe here. Can I help out?
Yes.
Okay, so this was a precipitating event. So the dishwasher had been run, and it was in the middle of running, and it wasn't very full. And so this was the precipitating event that sort of brought the energy of, hey, something's not going right in this system, to our awareness. Because instead of being able to sort of respond to it with oh, okay, that's interesting, all right, what are we going to do here? I yelled about it. And then Jack got really mad at me about the whole situation. And all of a sudden, I realized as the leader in this system, one of the leaders in this system, realized that the energy of the system wasn't working very well. And I didn't know what it was. Clearly the dishwasher was vaguely a part of it, but it was only a part of it, right? It was pointing to something else was going on in the system, and that it was our job to then take the time and the space to to be like, wait, what's happening here, right?
Mhm.
And so what did we do, Ben? What happened at that point?
We then had a long, peaceful talk about dishwashers.
No.
Yeah, no, that's not what
No.
happened.
Then Jack. Yeah.
So then,
Hold on, let Jack do it.
so
okay.
then, so I've been trying to like talk back because I need to find my voice more. So talking back is the way that we've decided that I would do it. And so none of us are going to school today anymore, and so yeah, we like yelled at each other about it.
Yeah.
Can
So
I-
then we had a time period where we were kind of like yelling at each other and sort of like kind of almost like in a boxing match, like almost like sparring at each other because we were trying to figure out what was going on here. So we went through that time period,
Then there was
And
some
then-
nice silence.
and then there was a little bit of quiet, and then like Jack and I came into the living room and we're like, wait a second, we got to talk here. And so we started talking about it and bringing up some of the stuff. And then Eva and Dean came in and joined us with it, right? So what happened when you guys came in and joined us in that discussion?
We talked about what we have, what we're talking about now, and what we have done wrong.
We talked about the ingratitude that's circling our family.
So we, after kind of being able to bring it out into the open and saying, oh, there's an issue that's here, we tried to pinpoint what is the sort of feeling or emotion that's going on in the system that's not feeding the system very well. And the feeling that it seemed like was the best pinpointing for that was this feeling of ingratitude, that we were having ingratitude for each other in the system. So I personally had to really go on the inside of myself and say, what am I feeling? And I was feeling like there was a lot of ingratitude from Jack, especially for me and all of the work that I have done in raising this family. And my guess is that in general, in systems, if one person is feeling that emotion, it's actually living in the full system. So my guess is that Jack was probably feeling like I was being ungrateful for the things that he does to help support the system. And
Which I
that,
was.
yeah. So, and that I just figured, I felt it inside of myself and then I named it. And I wasn't I was detached from that. So I named it. I said, hey, I think there's ingratitude here because this is what I'm feeling. And then I could feel there was kind of a from the system. There was like resonance from the system. I had named it and it had kind of done the gong thing in the system of like, yeah, that's probably the thing that's going on here right now.
I agree with Jack. I had that. I felt like you were not very grateful for what I was doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Dean felt like that too, because he felt like he had been trying to help out with stuff and that he was feeling like, hey man, I'm trying and nobody's recognizing how I'm trying. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So then we started being ungrateful to her.
Or it was, I think that that's possible. And I think it's possible that there was just a feeling of ingratitude that sort of came into the system of our family. And that's not a feeling that feeds into the creative and possible new stories and growth of our family. So it doesn't create that growth space. It's not a safe sort of container for the system of our family if there's ingratitude in the system, right? We know that gratitude is really, really important for us to all feel like this growth potential and the things that we're doing are actually contributing to the system and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
And so I think that a really important thing that we need to pay attention to here, and that's helpful when we're working on this, is that it's not about who caused it first. It's not about who did it first, and who created this ingratitude in the system. It's simply about recognizing that this is happening and then calling it forth and being like, oh, look, here it is. It's living in the system. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? Right? Because the instant that Jack says, you know, mom was acting ungrateful towards us first, and so we started acting ungrateful towards her, I want to go punch him in the face. So that's my like visceral response to it. Yeah, don't do it.
I
man.
remember.
But like, so hold on one second. It backs me into a corner and makes me feel very defensive. And we know that when we're backed into a corner and feel that kind of like, I have to defend myself, we have the reaction of fight, flight, or freeze. I tend to go towards fight whenever I'm in that place. So hence the punch in the face. Yeah. Some people tend to go towards flight, which means they're just going to run away from the conversation. They're like, I'm not in this conversation anymore. And some people go towards freeze, which is I'm here, but I'm not really here in my brain, you know? And so it's important that when we start assigning blame and start pointing fingers and saying, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it creates instantly this kind of fear-based response in our brains of fight, flight, or freeze. So it doesn't really actually help the system to grow. Okay. So yeah, go ahead, Eva.
I remember very clearly in kindergarten, we used to do that all the time. We used to be like, but he started it. But she started it. But he punched me in the face. What do you want me to do?
Yes.
I remember my teachers were always like, and I started using this now, like in Italy. I don't care who started it. I want to know who ended it.
I love that. That's beautiful. So it's a very natural place to go in our human evolution of our personal consciousness and also like the story of humanity, the arc of the story of humanity. And so when we're kind of in that place of starting to wake up to, you know, like maybe when there are those feelings that aren't the most helpful ones that are going around, and starting to understand where that came from and identify where that feeling started and where it came from, a very natural place to go is to start blaming and be like, well, that person started it. And so what an invitation is to move beyond that, because what happens is it makes people want to punch other people in the face.
Or flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
I always
It's
want to
just-
run away, personally.
So there you go. Eva's natural response is the fight response. Yeah, you definitely have that avoider, right? Yeah, and I've got the fighter inside of me too.
I'm cute.
So yeah.
Me
So
too.
yeah, go ahead. You're the fighter. You're the punch in the face kind of a guy. Yeah.
I'm
So-
glad I'm the fighter then, because
Yeah.
you guys are all going to be in a fist fight, and I'm going to be like,
Balance it out.
adios.
Well, so what happens is once we start noticing this about ourselves, instead of it just running us, instead of it being an unconscious thing that's pushing us forward and we just react to situations, we start being like, oh, my natural response is to go punch people in the face. So I don't really want to do that. So how am I going to respond to that? And this, for me, in this situation was to call it out when Jack said, well, mom was feeling that first, and then we started feeling it, to call it out and just say to him, in service to him and to all of them, of my immediate feeling when I hear that is that I want to punch you in the face. So it doesn't really serve the system. Did I punch him in the face? No. Why? Because I actually know this about myself. I've done a lot of work on myself on this is what I want to do. Or it makes you want to just honk your head off. You guys all heard the honk outside.
Honk orchestra.
Yeah. So kind of that first step is like really understanding what our immediate response is in that situation, and then really like feeling into what's going on in the system, listening to what's going on in the system, listening at all the different levels to what's going on in the system, so that we can say, what is happening here? What is this thing that's not working in the system that we're in? I don't know what it is. I can throw ideas out and then not be attached to that idea. Just toss it out. I like to say it's like throwing noodles at the wall, like throwing pasta at the wall. Toss some stuff at the wall and see what sticks. If there's a gong, then once you hear that gong from the system, you're like, okay, this is the thing that we need to talk about. This is what we need to look at and address. Yeah.
So start throwing pasta at a gong.
Jack loves to go to humor. Okay, so which is wonderful because I tend to be kind of intense. So what did we do then, Dean? What did we do once we said, wait, there's some ingratitude in the system? What was the next sort of thing that we went into?
The narrator.
We talked about what we felt like, and then me and Eva got dressed, and then
Hold on, before we did that, what was the like fun exercise that we did as each one of us was going around and saying something? What would we always say after they said it?
what I like about that
Was what I
love about that
is yeah. Okay.
like blah 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 blah.
Exactly. So this is a really, really, really helpful leadership tool to use when we're in situations where, okay, we've identified that this is maybe the thing that might need some addressing in the system that we're in. What do we need to do now? Well, to a certain degree, we need to build the system. We need to build up each of the individual parts of the system and almost empower their voices to be heard so that our system is stronger, and then we can come to this sort of more creative solution afterwards. Does that feel like about the right way to describe it? So a really easy, effective way to do this is by doing what we like to call a yes and brainstorm. And this is basically where we say, okay, we feel like there's some ingratitude going on in the system. You're sitting up a little bit straight. So Eva's, there we go. So we feel like there's some ingratitude in this system. We're going to call it out. We're going to name it. We're not going to run away from it. We're going to name this thing. And then we're going to say, okay, what do we think we could do about this? And Dean was the first one to throw out an idea. And so he came up with an idea of us taking more time with each other, basically. That was kind of the idea that he came up with. And I or somebody else in the system has to say, they have to say as a response, yes, what I love about that is, and it says something that they love about that idea of what they brought up. And then we say, and we kind of build like Lego blocks on top of it.
So that's like the one rule of brainstorming.
Yes, exactly. The rule around it is that the immediate response, no matter what the idea is, okay? Even if you think inside of yourself, that is the dumbest idea that I have ever heard on the planet, you have to find something that you love about it. You have to find some place where you can find that commonality and build a little bridge to that person. You have to find some place where you can do that with the other person and say, what I love about that is, and then say the thing that you love about it, and then say, and then you can throw your own idea on top of that too. Yeah. So what did you guys like about brainstorming in that way?
So what I liked about that is that it makes everyone feel good. It makes them all feel good.
How did you feel after you said your idea, or how did you feel once we started doing this? Did you feel a shift in the energy of the space?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what was that shift? What did it feel like to you?
Like more open. Opener.
And
Opener.
I agree with Jack, and I feel like we made a safe spot because we went from ungrateful to like, I am very grateful for what you just said because you are an amazing person. Thank you, Dean, for that idea. I love it so much. I'm going to tell you everything I love about it, and I'm going to add on to it.
Yeah, it's cool. I agree. I think that was a beautiful pointing to this possibility. Okay, so what about that do you think is the main feeling behind it for you?
For me, it makes me feel wanted and needed.
Which is a good feeling, isn't it? Yeah. We want to be a part of the family, don't we? We want to be a valuable member of the family and feel like our contribution is super needed because it is. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
To that point of, I don't know if you guys can see, but Eva's tearing up a little bit. She's so good at showing all of her emotions, isn't she? You're so wise. And it is this feeling of like, you know, when we, at least for me, that's how I kind of get this big, huge sigh and a little teary when I am recognized as an integral part of the system, that my contributions are not only wonderful, but they're needed in the system, that we need
Valued.
that. Yeah. And so valued and as a part of this system. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Jack's face.
What do you
I
think?
have one facial expression. Oh, one.
We're working on that.
Um,
All right, Dean, what do you want to say?
We're trying to.
then after we did that, and mom told us to go dress and put on my shirts, and like put on our clothes. We did a video.
That's right. So they did the kid takeover video this morning, which was awesome. And they did such a good job of describing grit and perseverance. And that actually came from our discussion, didn't it?
Yes.
Because do you want to say why?
I'm good, ma'am.
You want me to say why?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want Jack to say why?
Yes, please.
All right, Jack, you go for it.
Back me into a corner here. All right, so what we were talking about is so you guys can find this video on Facebook and on YouTube as per usual. Anyways, what we're talking about is persistence, grit, and failure. So when we're doing the brainstorm, we're persistent in like getting new ideas, and we fail at some ideas, and some ideas like resonate the gong, don't resonate the gong, stick on the wall, stick on the gong. And then grit is because it takes grit to keep on just adding more and more ideas until we get the right one.
Yeah. So I would say we have this really cool space that we've created of teaching a desire to find good solutions. You know, like in school, we teach people with math, like find the solution that solves the equation. We're such problem solvers. Yeah, we're such problem solvers. Our brains are just so amazing at solving problems. And one of the things that's also a really important skill set to learn is this idea of grit, and that we're going to fail over and over and over and over again. And that's okay, because instead of failure, it can just be seen as one of the steps on the path. Life would be so boring if we did this all perfectly all the time. It would be just so boring. And it's when we kind of can't figure it out on our own that we start being able to have these relationships with other people that are the most enriching and most amazing part of life, the relationships that we have with each other. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing about how it would be so boring if we all did it perfectly, my teacher, like with math equations, now we're at the point where there's like a million different ways we could put these together. And she's like, I want you guys to find the quickest way to put these together. The one who finds the quickest way, I'm going to know that one is like the most creative or something at this particular thing. And so, yeah, our teacher, basically, at least it taught me, I think it helps her to know who like needs more help in math, because they take super complicated. We're going to do this and then this and then this and then this and on and on and on. And who needs less help in math, so she can just leave them to do exercises.
So here, do we remember, so I like to talk in leadership about how there's kind of like two sides of every spectrum, that there's like that finding that place in the middle of the both. How do we find the both? So I know that with smaller people, that there's a lot of, there's very little drive towards efficiency. That when we load dishwashers, for example, we take 3 hours to load the dishwasher because we're like, la, 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 right? Yeah, exactly. We're dancing, we're doing all of that stuff. We don't have a huge drive towards actually like getting the job done. And so it's wonderful to have teachers that teach us, hey, this is a valuable skill set. Try to be efficient. Try to find places where we can actually be efficient. And
take 2.5 hours next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Not 3.
Yeah. And then there's this other side of it, which is something that my mom always taught me, which is love is inefficient. Love is inefficient. It just is. I sat here with my kids now for what? Now it's like 2 hours out of my workday, sitting with my kids, talking about the ingratitude that we got in our family system, figuring out what to do about it. Like, how are we going to move forward? What are we going to do? This is not efficient. This is not efficient in terms of like, it's not efficient in the short run. Beautiful, Jack.
One of the first things that mom taught me is like, when he was barely alive, she taught me delayed gratification.
Yeah, he's really good at delayed gratification. Yeah.
I'm phenomenal at delayed gratification.
I love it. You really are. Yeah. You might want to go a little bit in the opposite direction of like, how's the fun now? That's kind of what we're talking about now.
Because the efficient thing for me to do right now would be cleaning my room. And then for Dean to do would be, I don't know, cleaning his room and doing the dishes. Or us doing our school. Well, actually, I don't think that's any more efficient than this is. Anyways, and so instead, we're here talking.
Yeah. So this is something that is really an important place to go. And this is really hard for when we're developing and grooming teams, especially at the beginning, when we're onboarding team members, like we are currently doing right now. There's not a huge value that's placed on this. In fact, I got negative money for doing this for about 10 years, as does every other mom that spends the majority of their time doing this. Moms who are part-time moms like I am now, where I part-time work at something else and I part-time in their mother, do the mothering thing to them. So for us, it's also, there's a huge recognition inside of me about just how much zero money I am getting for the amount of time that I spend doing this. And in society, we in capitalist society, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way, we equate money to value. That's how we put those two things together. I am getting zero money for this. I'm getting negative money for doing this.
Right now.
It's an interesting place for us to go in society of how much are we putting value on creating this, on creating these spaces, on being able to do this, on onboarding new team members into the system, whatever the systems might be around the world right now. How are we doing at allowing the voices to be heard? How are we doing at holding the system? How are we doing at having these kind of really hard conversations? It's hard when I don't want to punch my son in the face, and I don't want to feel like I want to punch my son in the face. And so that's kind of a weird, funky place to go, And so, yeah, these are hard conversations. And right now we're putting negative value on it in society. I think that might be something that we might want to talk about in terms of the system and what's going on there.
You just wait until Dean makes world peace, I become president, and Jack is like a general in the army.
These are their plans. I love it. So there you
Also
go.
gonna rename myself Dean.
These are our thoughts for today. This is our leadership discussion for today. One of the tools that might be very helpful in creating effective dialogues, especially with people that perhaps you might disagree with, people that might be out there that you might see a different point of view on something with, build those bridges. That's what we do. So that, yes, what I love about this is a really, 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 really amazing, simple tool to create those safe spaces where we can talk about things constructively and find all of the new cool stuff that's out there waiting for us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any final words of wisdom that you want to throw into that system?
Bananas are blue.
Oh, even her blue bananas, always. Do you have anything you want to say? No?
So with throwing pasta at the wall, so there's like, you can throw the pasta at the wall and see what it sticks. So that's an old Italian, I think, Italian trick. And so that means it's like throwing out ideas. So then you can throw pasta at the gong, which I invented about 10 minutes ago. And so that is like throwing emotions into the pot and seeing which ones resonate.
Oh
Yeah. Which one's boing? Yeah, exactly. And so it can be, and going to that place of like, what are the emotions that are being felt right now? And naming those emotions can really, really help with opening up that space too, when we're in conversations with people and trying to find the new stories that we want to create with each other in our relationships with each other. Yeah.
May I please say something?
Always.
That might just not be supposed to be in the conversation.
You go for it, kiddo.
What Eva said about me doing world peace, I think I might be in the army in Aina or a priest.
I think Dean's gonna stop poverty or world peace, and the same with Jack. One of them is gonna do one of them.
Isn't it fun to think about where we're going and what's possible out there? Lots of cool things that are possible, especially when change is afoot. All right, guys. I love you all. I love you guys all too. Join us. We enjoy our conversations. We have lots of fun with them. And if you want to join the group, let me know, and I'll include you in the group so you can be a part of them next time too. All right. Have fun with your yes ands. Bye.